is a moment, silent, invisible, almost anticlimactic, where a man who's been chasing you with the intensity of a starving wolf suddenly transforms into a bored house cat staring at a wall. One day, he's blowing up your phone like you're a rare artifact he must possess at any cost. The next day, he's responding with lukewarm one-word answers and the emotional enthusiasm of a man watching beige paint dry. Women look at this shift and ask the same tragic question every time. Why does he lose interest once he wins? The answer is as beautiful as it is ugly. Men don't fall in love with women. They fall in love with the pursuit of women. Desire is not about you. Desire, to a man, is the story he tells himself while chasing you. You are the prize in the narrative, yes, but once the prize stands still, breathing, real, tangible, no longer positioned on the pedestal of his imagination, the spell shatters. Men crave the conquest, not the captured territory. Once he wins, he loses the high that kept him alive. Men don't fall out of interest. They fall out of imagination. Let me take you deeper, because surface-level explanations are for people who confuse romance with emotional literacy. You're not here for comfort. You're here for truth. And the truth is that a man's brain is wired for challenge, tension, uncertainty, and emotional risk. He's addicted to the climb. The moment he plants the flag, the terrain becomes boring. It's not personal. It's psychological economy. The chase is where he feels like a man. The capture is where he feels trapped. A 2018 study in evolutionary psychology found that when individuals perceive their partner as more committed than themselves, their instinct is to reduce investment, to maintain independence, and preserve leverage. In simpler terms, once he feels he has more power than you, he withdraws to maintain that power. You think you're offering him comfort. He thinks you're threatening his autonomy. But let's rewind to the beginning, because the tragedy doesn't start when he loses interest. It starts the moment he decides you're a target. When a man chooses you as his pursuit, he's not choosing you. He's choosing what conquering you will mean for his ego. You are the mirror he uses to admire himself. You're the trophy he envisions on his internal mantle. You're the psychological protein shake for his self-esteem. Then, when he finally wins you, when the mystery dissolves, when the uncertainty fades, when the anticipation dies, he realizes something horrifying. The feeling he was chasing was never inside you. It was inside him. And now, he can't recreate it with you, because your presence lacks the tension his ego required. This is why men flood you with intensity at the beginning. They're not showing you affection. They're building the emotional world they want to inhabit. In that world, they're the hunter, the victor, the architect of their destiny. And once they catch you, you become part of the landscape. Beautiful, but unexciting. Like a painting he's stared at too long. Women misread this shift as a personal downgrade. You think, was I not enough? Was I prettier when he was chasing me? Did I say too much? Did I do too much? Did I not do enough? And the honest answer is that none of that matters. Interest and desire in men do not evaporate because of your flaws. They evaporate because the tension that fueled his emotional machinery is gone. Men don't lose interest after they win because they don't value you. They lose interest because victory extinguishes hunger. Men are addicted to the feeling of almost. Almost getting you. Almost convincing you. Almost unlocking your attention. Almost being your priority. Almost is the drug. Having is the withdrawal. Once a man has you, unless you understand the psychological art of maintaining tension, he will slip into emotional lethargy. Not because he wants to, but because his internal wiring makes him see secured love as a completed quest. And completed quests get abandoned. Men don't leave because they're cruel. They leave because they've reached their emotional credit limit. Let's go darker, because the truth always gets darker. Men who lose interest after the win are not reacting to reality. They're reacting to the collapse of their own fantasies. The version of you he chased was painted with projection, idealization, imagined obstacles, an inflated reward. The version of you he gets after he wins is just you. A real woman with a real personality, real needs, real emotions, real timing, real inconvenient humanity. And humanity is the enemy of fantasy. This is why a man can shower you with passion on day 10 and act like you're optional on day 30. At the beginning, you were a canvas he painted his desires onto. After he has you, you're a mirror reflecting him back to himself. And most men don't enjoy their own reflection. They prefer the fantasy. And notice the sick irony. The same man who loses interest once he wins will regain interest the moment he senses he's losing you. It's pathetic, predictable, and deliciously exploitable. The desperation returns. The passion returns. The effort returns. Why? Not because he suddenly sees your worth, but because the chase resurrects the fantasy he lost. This is why you will see men who ghosted you suddenly reappear with lyrical paragraphs when you stop caring. Why he suddenly becomes consistent the moment you redirect your attention. Why he goes from bored to obsessed when he feels your value rising in the market of human attention. Men don't want love, they want leverage. And the moment they sense they have too much leverage over you, their interest evaporates. He doesn't want to overpower you. He wants to chase you. He doesn't want possession. He wants pursuit. You're not the addiction. The emotional imbalance is. Now, here's where most women fail. They get the man, then they immediately try to solidify the bond. They communicate more. They open up more. They give more. They start nurturing the connection, like a gardener watering a delicate sprout. Meanwhile, the man is sitting there wondering why the excitement has died. The irony. Your nurturing accelerates his boredom, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your certainty kills his instinct for conquest. A man's interest is like a fire built out of stolen wood. Once he owns the forest, he stops collecting. But there is another side to this story, a side most women never learn, because they're too busy reacting emotionally instead of strategically. There are women who play men better than men play women. Those women don't lose men after the win, because they never allow the man to believe the win is complete. These women understand one thing. Men crave pursuit forever. Not just in the beginning. Forever. They don't give total access. They don't reveal all their layers at once. They don't collapse into vulnerability like a dying star. They maintain mystery, not as a game, but as an identity. They are endlessly unfolding, endlessly unpredictable, endlessly sovereign. And men become addicted, not to them, but to the unfinishable chase. Those women are rare, precious, dangerous. The kind of women men obsess over well into old age. They live in the parts of his mind he can't map out. This is what I teach in coaching. Not how to be nice. Not how to be cute. Not how to be agreeable. Those things bore men to death. I teach how to maintain emotional gravity. how to stay strategically unpredictable, how to force a man's instinctual hunger to stay alive long after the initial conquest, how to become the woman he wins but never completes. It's pinned in the comments because only the women who want real transformation will click it. Coaching is where you learn leverage. It's where you learn how to stop bleeding emotional power. It's where you learn how to walk into a man's psyche and place yourself in the one position he cannot mentally abandon. And yes, the landing page is done. It will be in the description and pinned comment. The free PDF is there. The video training is there. The newsletter is there. And if you have even a faint pulse of ambition, you'll join it. Because that's where I drop the things YouTube would never allow. And of course, the feminine game is available for pre-order on the same page. You'll read it once and feel the tectonic plates of your dating life shift. The most brutal irony in all of this is that men reveal their weakness not when they chase you, but when they finally win you. The moment he gets what he wants, his true psychological structure is exposed. You'll know exactly what type of man you're dealing with, not by how he pursues you, but by how he behaves once he believes the pursuit is complete. Some men collapse into complacency because they were never attracted to you. They were attracted to the struggle to access you, your resistance, your standards, your unpredictability gave him the tension he needed to feel alive. You were the stage he performed his masculinity on. The moment you opened the door, he realized the audience had left the theater. Others drift because they are addicted to possibility, not reality. Possibility is perfect. Possibility is untouchable. Possibility carries no flaws, no routines, no human inconveniences. Reality, your reality, has habits, moods, expectations, boundaries, rhythms. And once he enters the world of your reality, he discovers he was never prepared for the intimacy he pretended to seek. But the most common type, the one you will encounter again and again, is the man who loses interest, because the conquest is the only place where he feels powerful. Outside of the chase, he is ordinary. He knows he is ordinary. The pursuit is where he compensates. The excitement you feel during the chase, that is his last gasp of vitality before he sinks back into psychological mediocrity. In other words, the man who loses interest after the win never had depth. He only had adrenaline. Women romanticize the chase. They think it's passion. They think it's chemistry. They think it's some cosmic recognition written in the stars. But the chase is just a performance. Men chase beautifully because they've rehearsed that part of the script more than any other. They know the cues. They know the lines. They know how to simulate intensity in a way that makes you feel chosen. The chase is where he shines, because the chase requires nothing of him except hunger. Afterwards, when presence, stability, consistency, and emotional depth are required, he dries up like a puddle under the sun. And you sit there confused, replaying the first 2 weeks like a crime scene, trying to identify which moment you messed up, unaware that the real mistake was believing the man who chased you was the same man who would keep you. He wasn't. He isn't. He never will be. The pursuit is his costume. The boredom is his nature. If you want to test a man, don't analyze how he behaves when he wants you. Analyze how he behaves once he believes he already has you. That's when the performance ends. That's when the mask slips. That's when the cracks in his psychology stop hiding behind romance and reveal the truth. Most men are incapable of sustaining desire without resistance. Men fall asleep in comfort. Men rise in tension. Men lead in uncertainty. Men stagnate in security. And you, unknowingly, provide too much security too quickly. Not because you're weak, but because women are conditioned to equate affection with access. When a man finally chooses them, they extend the bridge. They soften. They accommodate. They nurture. They let him in fully, believing closeness will deepen the connection. But closeness doesn't deepen a man's attraction. Distance does. Not emotional distance, not disinterest, not hostility. Those are amateur tactics. The distance I'm referring to is psychological sovereignty. The knowledge that you belong to yourself first. The quiet, effortless tension created by a woman who is not ruled by male attention, not shaken by a man's inconsistency, not defined by whether he stays or goes. Men lose interest when they win, because the win gives them certainty, and certainty gives them the illusion of control. You lose interest when he becomes inconsistent. He loses interest when you become predictable. This is the great asymmetry of heterosexual psychology. Women crave closeness. Men crave challenge. Women bond through access. Men bond through pursuit. Until you learn to reconcile these instincts strategically, you will always fall victim to the cycle of being intensely desired, then carelessly discarded. But here is where things shift, because this dynamic is not an unchangeable law. It is a pattern, and patterns can be disrupted, broken, reversed, weaponized. A woman who understands male psychology becomes the architect of his desire. She doesn't chase. She doesn't cling. She doesn't panic. She doesn't negotiate for his attention like a beggar at a banquet. She maintains the one thing men cannot resist: unpredictability wrapped in femininity, softness laced with sovereignty, warmth paired with distance. Not coldness, not indifference, not games, just presence without possession. You want the secret of why certain women never get won by men, even when the man is in a relationship with them, because they never stop being the frontier he wants to explore. They change. They evolve. They reinvent. They refuse to shrink into the role he assigns them. They stay emotionally alive rather than emotionally available. And men, in their deeply primitive way, cannot abandon a woman who makes them feel like they are constantly rediscovering her. This is why men who lose interest in everyone else will stay addicted to these women for years. These women never allow the man's imagination to die. They keep it fed, intentionally or instinctively, because the moment his imagination dies, so does his desire. Most women cannot pull this off, not because they aren't capable, but because they never learned how. They were taught to show their whole selves too fast, to collapse into emotional nakedness the moment they feel safe. They were taught that transparency equals trust, that openness builds relationships, that accessibility strengthens bonds. That may work in the world of ideals, but in the world of male psychology, it's a surefire way to turn yourself into emotional background noise. And here's the part no one likes to say out loud. Some women actually like the collapse after the chase. They mistake it for intimacy, for settling in, for ease. They misinterpret his sudden casualness as comfort. They don't realize that comfort for most men is the first stage of mental exit. When a man relaxes too much, he stops performing. When he stops performing, he stops trying. When he stops trying, his desire rots. And when his desire rots, he labels it falling out of love. Men don't fall out of love. They fall into laziness and call it loss of interest. And you, because you've been conditioned to personalize everything, interpret his laziness as your failure. You go into repair mode. You start giving more, explaining more, opening more. You become emotionally louder, hoping it will wake him from his stupor. All it does is deepen his boredom. You cannot negotiate attraction with a man. You can only create the conditions where his desire must stay active to survive. And that requires understanding the internal machinery. He doesn't even understand himself. That is why I created coaching. Not because women are weak or clueless, but because the modern social environment is built on misinformation. Everything women are taught about male desire is wrong. Everything men brag about in dating is exaggerated. Everything relationship culture pushes is designed to keep people blind to the power dynamics actually governing their connections. Coaching is where we dismantle those illusions one by one, where we take your patterns and slice them open to expose the hidden mechanics, where you learn how to create tension without toxicity, mystery without manipulation, attraction without self-sacrifice, where you learn how to enter the psychological battlefield fully armed instead of emotionally naked. It's pinned in the comments for a reason. Those who are ready will find it. And yes, the landing page is finished. The PDF is there. The video is there. The newsletter is there. Read it. Watch it. Join it. If your instinct is telling you to ignore it, that's fear speaking, not intelligence. And the feminine game is available for pre-order on the same page. It's not a book. It's an arsenal. Men don't fear women. They fear the parts of themselves women have the power to expose. And nothing exposes a man faster than a woman who refuses the role he quietly tries to cast her in. The minute you stop performing the script he assigned you, good girl, patient supporter, loyal placeholder, emotional sponge, the system he spent years constructing begins to malfunction. He becomes erratic, defensive, invested, interested again, but not in the casual, effortless way he pursued you at the beginning. This time he's invested with panic humming under his ribcage. Because now you're not a compartment. You're a threat. A beautiful one. A strategic one. A feminine one. But a threat nonetheless. And men behave very differently when they sense a woman slipping out of the mental box they trapped her in. They tighten up. They start checking your social media more. They get curious about your tone, the timing of your responses, the new energy in your voice they can't decode. They feel something they haven't felt since the very beginning. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is the oxygen of male desire. Take it away, and he suffocates. Give too much of it, and he panics. Manage it correctly, and he becomes addicted. The reason so many women lose men after the win is because they don't understand how to manage that oxygen. They suffocate him with vulnerability, consistency, eagerness, emotional predictability, the very things women crave in return. But men do not crave what women crave. And if you refuse to understand that, you will keep reliving the same heartbreak with different faces. A man's interest is not maintained through closeness. It's maintained through the emotional architecture surrounding that closeness. Closeness without structure becomes suffocation. Closeness within structure becomes devotion. Structure is what most women lack, not because they're weak, but because they've been taught the wrong rules from birth. They're taught that relationships thrive on transparency, openness, and emotional symmetry. Meanwhile, men are socialized under the opposite code. Never reveal too much. Always keep options open. Maintain leverage at all costs. You're playing checkers. He's playing chess. And he's not even a good player. He's just playing the right game. This is why so many men lose interest once they've won. Because the moment they get the woman, they return to the psychological rule book they've carved over years of trial and error. Withdraw first. Invest carefully. never rely on one woman for emotional fulfillment. They don't retreat out of logic. They retreat out of habit, out of fear, out of the ancient instinct that whispers, if she's yours, she can destroy you. Men don't lose interest out of boredom. They lose interest out of self-preservation. And if you're smart, strategically smart, you use this to your advantage, not by punishing him, not by playing childish games, but by mastering the art of controlled access. Controlled access means you allow intimacy without surrendering leverage. You give connection without collapsing into devotion. You remain emotionally available, but psychologically sovereign. It's the difference between being chosen and being claimed. Men choose women every day, but the ones they try to claim, the ones they attempt to define, monitor, label, and secure, are always the women they cannot fully read. A man tries to control what he cannot replace. The women men lose interest in are easy to categorize. The women men stay obsessed with are impossible to finish. That is the woman you must become if you want to break the cycle of conquest and abandonment. The woman he wins, but never completes. The woman whose depth reveals itself, slowly, deliberately, unpredictably. The woman who keeps her emotional universe intact rather than merging it entirely with his. Do that, and men will not lose interest after they win you. They'll lose interest in every other woman instead. But becoming that woman isn't a matter of personality. It's a matter of strategy. You don't just wake up with psychological gravity. You cultivate it. You learn it. You practice it until it seeps into your posture, your voice, your timing, your presence. And that is why coaching exists. Because you cannot build these skills alone in the dark, relying on gut instinct and failed experiences. Coaching gives you a blueprint for feminine power in a masculine psychological world. It shows you exactly where you give too much, too early, where you betray yourself, where you leak value, where you collapse into vulnerability without strategy, where men quietly stop taking you seriously. And when you dismantle those patterns, everything changes. You stop attracting inconsistent men. You stop accepting half-effort as affection. You stop losing them after they win. Because suddenly you're not a prize. They're the one being evaluated. One-on-one coaching isn't therapy. Therapy heals. Coaching transforms. Therapy helps you understand your emotions. Coaching helps you weaponize them. When you work directly with someone who understands how male psychology actually functions, not the sanitized version, but the real version, you gain an advantage most women will never touch. When you understand men properly, they become predictable. When you understand yourself properly, they become manageable. When you understand the game properly, they become irrelevant to your emotional stability. And that is when they chase you for real. Not out of adrenaline, not out of lust, but out of fear of losing the one woman they cannot replace. This is why the link is pinned in the comments. Why the landing page is finished. Why the free PDF and training video are sitting there waiting for you. Why the newsletter is where the real secrets are dropped. Why the feminine game is open for pre-order. Because if you want to stop watching men lose interest after they win, you need to stop being the kind of woman who can be won too quickly, too fully, too completely. The game isn't about being desired. The game is about becoming unforgettable. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe. More is coming, and you don't want to miss the next moves. Now answer this in the comments. Which part of men losing interest after they win hit you the hardest, and why? Your answer will tell me exactly what video to make next.